Peace to all. This is your brother David Beloved bringing you another edition of Info Den, information necessary for overstanding. And this time we're going to bring you the Harlem Liberation School. We're going to be covering powerful black sisters in history, black women in history making a major impact.
My name is Brother Agyei Tyehimba. I'm the founder coordinator of the Harlem Liberation School. I just want to welcome you all out in this inclement weather and just kind of tell you a little bit about what it is we try to do. The Harlem Liberation School basically is, you could say, follows the model of Ella Baker's and Slick's Freedom Schools that they created in 64, 65 in Mississippi. And the whole thing was, it wasn't a traditional school. They were trying to raise a generation of activists and organizers in the community. So they would have people come and they would deal with people's real life experiences. It wasn't a lot of over your head academia. And they tried to teach people their rights and also inspire people and teach them the tools they needed to go out in their community and engage people and to raise consciousness. And at that time, specifically, they wanted to change the political structure of Mississippi. So they were trying to get people out to vote, register to vote, and that type of thing. And from that, we get I.N.F.O, Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and all these type of things. It's also inspired by, if you were in New York City in the 80s, and you might remember First World Alliance. Anybody remember that? First World Alliance? They used to meet sometimes in City College, sometimes on the school on 145th, and they would have heavyweights like Marimba Anidi, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, all of these people come through and basically share consciousness, share their academia from their books. And it was a place people could go, you paid $2 or $3, and you could go and you could really be fed, you know, intellectually and politically. So it's trying to combine, it's trying to be a space where the community can come out free of charge on a semi-consistent basis, twice a month, the second Mondays of each month and the last Monday of each month. And basically you can come and you can learn and you can share, you can give input. And I think what makes it unique is that we're not hitting anyone over the head with a particular ideology. You know, so I'm Pan-African nationalist, but I'm not hitting anybody over the head with Pan-African nationalism. Okay, although you're going to see, obviously, there's going to be a little slant at times. If you look at the people we're talking about tonight, Ella Baker, and you look at Sister Soldier, you look at Assata Shakur, and some of these people, Harriet Tubman, you'll see that there's certain information that we're going to highlight. We're highlighting people who are organizing, people who are using their intellect and their ideas through writing, through struggle, to try to teach our people to, as our motto says, wake up, clean up, and stand up. And it doesn't matter if you're Christian, we don't care about your sexuality, we don't care what you do privately, we don't care if you're feminist, we're not looking at that. If you're black, you can come here, you can learn something, you can share something. And then as the year goes on, right now we're in the wake-up phase, so it's a lot of consciousness raising, right? But as we go on, we're going to get to the cleanup phase, where we talk about our self-defeating behaviors and habits that get in the way of our being able to organize, being able to pool our resources, and being able to go forward. And then we're going to move into the stand-up phase, where we talk about building community institution, teaching people who come the skills they need to go out in the community and to engage the community. So at some point we'll be talking about how to do petitions, online and written, how to knock on doors and canvass the community, how to survey the community to see what your community thinks, what issues are important to your community. We're going to be talking about writing press releases, running press conferences, things of that nature. All right, so that's pretty much what we're here to do. Today, what we were talking about is black women as leaders and voices of resistance. I wanted to do that by kind of having us look at messaging. So for instance, you see two boxes. One says, I hope you can see it, real men are, and then next to that you see real women are. And when you think of this, I want you to think of how do real men act, right? How do real men act? And I'm going to ask you all just to shout out, man, what do you expect of a real man? How do you expect people to conduct themselves? So, real men are protective,
Providers.
real men are providers. So yes, one of the archetypes of men is that they are protective, they're providers. I've heard sisters tell me, I can't be with a guy shorter than me. I can't be with a guy that I can manhandle. I want to feel safe with the guy. So the guys must be a protector. What else?
I see you got real in quotation marks up there, and I think that's kind of like where the disconnect is happening right now.
Okay.
I think what we're saying right now is the ideals of manhood that we would like to see.
Oh, that's cool.
It sounds like what you are pointing at are what are the archetypes of manhood,
Absolutely.
the expressions of manhood that we usually see.
Absolutely. And if you are a man I know growing up in Harlem in the 80s, when I grew up in Harlem in the 80s, if you weren't on the football team, basketball team, could slap box, could 52, then you were kind of looked at kind of whack by brothers and sisters alike. Okay, so what would you say a real lady? What is a real lady like?
Respectful.
Submissive.
Wow. Whoa. I like that. Moral, and we'll say clean. I get it. Okay, now, so when a woman acts outside of that box of expectations or archetypes, what are the types of words we call that woman?
Good.
No, she acts outside.
She acts outside of it?
She acts outside of that,
Okay, a slut.
the box of expectations. Okay, so we said slut. I'm going to add the one I hit. I'm going to say thought. What else?
Ratchet.
Bimbo, ratchet.
Jezebel.
And it's very assertive. What do we call that woman? That we don't call a man.
Boy.
Yes, it starts with a B. The itch. We're going to put itch up here. Nobody talk about Agyei wrote. You ain't gonna do that to me. We're gonna put that, we know what that is. Right? But it's these negative stereotypes. Now, how do you think this manifests in people's lives in negative ways? In women's lives? Sisters, particularly you, how do you think that presumptions of you that are not true and that may be negative might affect your ability to navigate in life? Your actual... Okay, how? How?
I think that you can walk in and have him on a burlap sack if his thinking is flawed. When you come in the door and you are a woman or a woman of color, a black woman, let's keep it funky, excuse me, negative, and they believe that you are who she thought, or you operate from a sexual base, you are unintelligent. You got here because you were given some opportunity to get in through the back door, not because you are competent or capable of doing that job. You have problems, and it prohibits our ability to move.
You only see, let me interpret what I think I hear you saying. I think I hear you saying that the black woman in this particular case is seen as only a sexual being, nothing else. Right? You're not looking past anything other than her, below her navel. So you're not seeing her intellectualism, and you have a negative connotation associated with sex in the first place, that you would relegate her to that place, that is the only way that you can identify her with anything other than, right, her lower region. Versus seeing, if you had a different perspective about sex, she could be a sexual goddess, right? That could provide a whole bunch of mental, spiritual, and emotional stimulation, but because you only see it from a physical place, you don't have the ability to go past.
But that we lack intelligence, ability outside of the house or the bedroom, and it touches on so many areas, and we don't just see it outside of our homes. We see it in our personal relationships. We see it between sisters.
Okay.
Sounds like we're still repeating the slave narrative. Like we still haven't decolonized our mentality, where women aren't seen as whole beings; they're seen as pieces. Like the way we refer to our first lady. Oh, what nice arms she has. We don't refer to the fact that she's a two-time Ivy League graduate. So it's the fact that women, especially women of color, are only seen as pieces and not even a whole being that could even have intelligence or provide anything forward. That's what I'm hearing you say.
It's kind of like designated roles based on gender. Like women, they stay in the house, they take care of the children. And I've met some men in my life who doesn't look beyond that. Like, I have a friend who actually used to work at a garage, and she worked the systems better than the man, but he only saw her as a sexual piece of object. Not that she knew the abilities of how to work a car, the knowledge of how to work it, and she had to quit because she kept on being harassed based on, she kept being sexually harassed, not based on her intelligence, but by the way she looked, you know?
Trying to push us to see how these abstract ideas manifest in physical realities. So we don't keep it up in the air. Connect that to your real lived experience. Relationships that didn't work because of negative presumptions. Jobs you didn't get or were passed over because of negative presumptions, right? Sir?
We don't control no types of parts of the media, our people, black people. From my understanding, I know that, like the fellow was saying, that Europeans control media. I feel Jews exactly are the ones who control it. So they're gonna depict us and show things to us that degrade us, bring us down, or make us look as small as we are, you know what I mean, in the media, and have our children watching this, and cartoons, and send little subliminal messages through that, and people are breaking that down mentally and living it through their lives daily.
Okay.
And like the Maury show, which I hated but all my friends loved because it was entertaining. I thought about how I subconsciously looked at the women who were on those shows and all the women who, how it would be so embarrassing to get to the point where you were on national television not knowing who your father was. That means that you are a slut. That means that you are like ratchet. And all of those women always were like young African American women. They looked the same. They couldn't articulate themselves very well. And then Maury would prove that they had not only slept with this guy, but the other guy, and the other guy, and the other guy. And after all of it, they still didn't, they would fall out afterward. It's all this drama and stereotype. And I really, I would watch those shows, and then I would, go to high school or whatever. And I feel like my girlfriends, we would talk about, those girls who dress like that and look like that, they're going to be baby mamas or whatever. They're gonna be like that. And I feel like those shows are still on, and they really dramatize our family life and our love life and how you're respected based on your sexuality. Because these girls are always promiscuous, they're always sleeping around with everyone. And those are some of the things I just wanted you were talking about the television shows, those are some of the things.
Okay.
Read the image of Cookie on Empire. You know,
Can you elaborate on what you see problematic?
she's this ex-drug dealer, do whatever you gotta do to get the money, which takes me to Beyonce, who tells us that the paper is the only thing that matters in her new song Formation. But so Cookie is this, she's like this street woman that has clawed her way to the top. I don't watch it. I can't tell you much.
Yes.
I kind of want to go back to your example on Maury. I feel like with those narratives, they do exist, You don't know the situation of why that woman went on that show, probably to gain fame, but there are situations in which those baby mamas are suffering at home. Their circumstances we don't understand, and when you see them on these TV shows, the only thing you see there are the stereotypes of them being loud, not them being able to articulate their ideas, but they are living the life. They may not be able to articulate the ideas, but they know, they're living that life. They may have been abused, may have been assaulted or something like that. And in those situations, maybe the Maury show was a way for them to get answers, but you don't feel for them as human beings. You see them as this character, this archetype of the loud black promiscuous woman. Their parents may have gone through the struggle of trying to protect them, and maybe they couldn't, we see them as this character. We don't see them as actual victims of this white supremacist state.
I mean, I agree with her totally, right, 150%. Like, I think, it goes back to the whole conversation about the brother saying that we don't control what gets put in front of our eyes. And so that's why that Maury still exists. Jerry, I flipped through the channels and saw Jerry Springer. I'm like, is he still alive? That this still gets to get perpetuated, but it's not just black people. It's a class thing. They have poor white trash up there acting just as stupid. And it's always against the woman. Even when the man is sowing his seeds and spreading it all around, he's still not vilified in the same way that the woman may be looked upon because she has more than one father for her children. We're not talking, you're talking about not knowing their lives, right? We don't know the relationships we don't know the history. We're not talking about any of that. We just see the result. And the result is a child. I have a really good friend from first grade, and she has 5, she's pregnant with her 5th child right now, right? And so in her mind, she's got some stories. Shit, I'm 44 years old, I'm on baby number 5, daddy number 5, but even though it's her husband, she still is thinking something must be wrong with the situation. So I said, well, let's flip this, let's change this. And we created this whole t-shirt, journey, yo, what if you just had a shirt that said, got daddies, I got 7, whatever. But because I chose life, that's why I had 5 baby daddies. I could have chose another route and I would have none. We never consider the other side that says she chose to bring life to the planet versus doing some other thing that a whole lot of other people choose. We only look at the result and we look at the way that women are perceived because they are having children or because they fell in love with somebody and it didn't work out and the result was a child. And that we look at having a child and being mothers as something wrong versus, we're populating the earth. And without us, without our womb, nobody would be here.
Okay, but we do control what comes into our homes. We do control what we watch and what we listen to and what we subject our children to, just as we control the diet that we feed them from the oven, the fridge, and the cupboard. We don't take the responsibility for what we feed them. And I'm guilty of this just like anybody else. The sisters, the cookies, and I love you all. We have to embrace our cookies. We need our cookies. We need all of our sisters, our ratchet sisters, the ratchet sister that lives in ourselves. We have to embrace them. We have to learn how to fix what is broken within ourselves and amongst us. And we have to build together. But in order to do that, we have to understand. We don't have to understand or know a person's full story, and this is clearly my opinion, to understand that they need us and we need them. They are embarrassing to the system. She said they're on Maury and they're acting up, and she fits a stereotype that might indicate that she's going to be a single parent mother. But a sister can go to college and be accomplished and be a single parent mother. She can wear a suit. She can wear sweats. They're us, they're ours. And we have to be able to first admit that in each of our families, we have dysfunction. And in most cases, we have dysfunction in ourselves. So we cannot get rid of our cookies. We need Cookie's presence on the screen. Cookie doesn't just show that she's about the dollar. She also shows that she's a strong sister that's holding down her man and her family, and she represents a segment of our society, of our family.
And do you think that's why Fox TV
No, I don't.
is presented?
No, I don't. I don't. But you know what? I'm glad that they did. We have these housewives series that I don't watch, right? And we have these sisters, Atlanta or LA or wherever they are. And not to knock them, because we have our so-called elite who are living these lives. And we have them represented. We have sisters, young girls that are watching them and thinking that's what it's about. You know what I mean? And that the young lady that's walking down the sidewalk pushing that stroller, that's not what it's about. And there is truth to both. And we have to start looking at all sides of this and addressing all sides of it. And in order to do that, we have to embrace it.
But because
we gotta be honest about it.
Does that make, this old saying that says, you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. Now, if I'm in the house, laying up, with my legs up, having babies, dressed up, does that make me any different than the sister with the sneakers on? You know what I mean? Like, there's no difference. What, because I'm in a house versus an apartment? What's the distinction here? I think it's about the interpretations that we create. You know, you giving this other side of cookie is like brilliant. We get to create the interpretation. I never even saw it as this. I saw it as this ride or die sister who was like, yo, I'm down for my family and I'm doing righteousness by that, even if it was by the way of the streets. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm listening to this, I'm going, well, shoot, I'm educated with a bunch of baby daddies. I don't know who am I, right? So where's my view of me and how do I determine what I'm going to represent? That's up to me. That's my interpretation of myself, and how you decide to look at me or put me in a box, so to speak, is up to you. I have nothing to do with that. I think we give too much credence to what other people are thinking and saying about us, and so how we going to morph and contort ourselves into something that we've never been. I'll never be a skinny white girl, right, with the flat abs, you know, Barbie. That's never going to be my look. Why? Because my mama don't look like that.
That's right.
You understand?
Because when we talk about white media and who's producing the shows, there's always a long list of African American people who are willing to produce these ridiculous shows and co-sign and put their family and friends up on it and exploit everybody. So that's the reality also. And then I just wanted to add, like, I really feel like with these examples, with thinking about this, for me as an African American woman growing up, there's like this, you can escape all of this if you, like what you were talking about class, if you have this fake, like, I'm escaping with my Louis bag, my 26-inch shoes, and everything, because we can't control our skin color, but we can control everything else. So that's why Real Housewives of Atlanta it's escapism for a lot of African American women, to pretend like we're the mistress, basically, like we're the head of the household, like we are these white women. It's so important, and it gets you jobs, like versus going into an interview with a long leave versus going in. You might get, because it's all connected to like everyone's interpretation of all of these stereotypes.
Sana Shakur, did you say that she didn't in any way challenged some of those negative presumptions or stereotypes that we said many in our community, unfortunately and outside, hold of black women? Sir.
A comment that she's more of a catalyst to kind of like, you know, push forward those negative stereotypes to kind of like get people caught up in the trick or the illusion of what we're not, or just a small percentage of what we can be, what we're capable of, but not the full greatness of what we can possibly do.
That's not true fact. How we view the black woman, in my opinion, is individual, because it's according to how you was brought up. See, I was brought up around women that wore slips and girdles. You understand? Went to church. You understand what I'm saying? So I seen that image of a black woman that was strong. That was my mother, grandmother, that was a state church. This, that, the third, whatever came from. My point is, the black woman is like he said, our black woman. It wouldn't have been Malcolm without Betty. It wouldn't have been King without Coretta. It wouldn't have been Obama without Michelle. But if the black woman look at the black man and respect him and not treat him the way the white man treat us, we'll bond and we'll be tighter. So she can't come at us and say things to us, you know, negative and disrespectful, and that's feeding into what they want to do. But it's my last point. Very quick. Why I came here today, because I want to support, but I feel this room should have been packed. Okay? Secondly, Sister Soldier, true story. I was on 141st Street between Carver and Amsterdam. I was walking up the block, police jumped out. She was going in her brownstone. Okay? She stopped on her stoop and said, "Brother, you all right?" I said, "I'm good, sister." And then she went in her house. Now you got some men that wouldn't even say, "Brother, you all right?" Okay? That's how much kahuna she had. So I never forgot that story. Very quickly, I do stand-up comedy. I'm at the world famous Caroline. I'm Jeff Ola, that's my stage name. I'm Mac Ola, 79 on Instagram, on Facebook. Jeffrey Freeman Facebook.
where she talked about the concept of leaning in. But when I think about Assad Shakur, one of the things that I'm most impressed with is when we're talking about stereotypes, was less about stereotypes that she broke down and more about the stereotypes that she leaned into. Assad Shakur was a very, very bold and outspoken black woman. Part of my friends, but she gave 0 fucks. And that's not something that we reward in black people, let alone in black women. And I think that for me, the sister that talked about the organizing and all of that, I think that's a part of it. But white people understand the importance of leaning in. They make millions of dollars writing books about it. Assad Shakur understood the importance of leaning in to that which is innate to us. Sometimes it's a personality trait, and sometimes it's just the expression of the struggle. I just very recently, because of thinking about Assad Shakur, made a post on Facebook about how I was no longer going to get upset at work or try to shun the stereotype of being called an angry black man. Because I am an angry black man and I have to be a fool not to be. And Assad Shakur felt that way. And you listen to her, and I apologize for being late, but I've obviously read it and listened to things she said before. There is an underlying element of obviously intelligence and all of those things, but of anger. Assad Shakur was unapologetically pissed off about the way she was treated, about the way that her trial was rigged, about the things that were going on with black people, and not running from what we are told are negative stereotypes about ourselves, I think is important in revolutionary politics.
Absolutely. Okay, Brother Mark.
If I can, let me just kind of quickly connect the dots. Harriet Tubman, she was a fearless black leader. She was the sister that started it all. She said she would have freed more slaves if they would only realize they were slaves. And then we have Ella Baker. Ella Baker, she was the quintessential organizer. She was the one who put forth the opposite of the Messiah complex. She was teaching those young people to organize. She was teaching them to be leaders within themselves and not just depend on one charismatic leader. She was the one who chastised Martin Luther King and told those young people that it is your time right now. She said, do it nonviolently, but she said, this is your time, organize. When we want to talk about Ella Baker, if we're going to say that Rosa Parks was the mother of the civil rights movement, then we have to say that Ella Baker is rightfully the godmother.
That's right. You know, talk about the story of Moses, very special in comparison to Harriet Tubman, was that spark that she put herself in front of harm's way in order to protect one of her brothers. That's right before she freed slaves, before she did the whole Underground Railroad thing. There was a moment in her life where one of the slaves that she was dealing with, or part of her tribe, or whatever you want to call it, was being mistreated by the slave owner. And she put herself, her body, in the way of harm in order to protect that slave. So she had that understanding that in order to do great things like start a revolution or lead slaves into freedom, you have to first start with that brotherly love aspect. You have to start with that. That was that one thing that sparked it for her, same way with Moses. Her story is really undervalued, you know what I'm saying? In terms of Americans, I would put her above all of them because it was her actions that kind of started little mini revolutions in terms of the turning point of this country. So a lot of these people she was freeing went on to become the front lines against those very same slave masters they were being enslaved by. So her actions really were a big part in terms of a lot of these former slaves now becoming soldiers and fighting for their freedom. Because if people just talk about, you know, she saved 1,000 slaves and bring them up to the north, but these so-called slaves or enslaved Africans, they're not just chill in the north and lived happily ever after. They still had that fight for freedom in them, and they went back into the South and fought against the South. So I just wanted to add that with Harriet Tubman. You know, her story is a lot
grander and bigger than what we really just see, you know what I'm saying? People talking about put on a $10 bill, I say put on a $100 bill. That's all I want to talk about.
Can we get some?
A lot of them, as you can see, are negative of the sisters. And the brother pointed out something that I hadn't considered until tonight for some reason, and that is that we have moved backwards, and I'm talking about sisters, not or people, we as a people have moved backwards. But we can't associate any of those negative stereotypes to any of those sisters up there.
That's right.
Or to our mothers who came before us, to my knowledge. If I'm wrong, please correct me. And it appears to me, starting with sisters like Harriet, and moving all the way down to Sister, what is it? Sister Soldier. That all of these sisters, Soldier, she is more relatable to us, most of the sisters here, some of y'all are young. But those elders came strong, and they were warriors, every one of them, Masada included. They fought on the front line. They fought the brothers for a voice. They established community. I mean, Ella is a queen because what she represents is true womanhood. She fell back to not just the younger people in order to put them on a plateau and teach them to find their own voices and develop community, but she fell back to a movement. She could have been up there. She's fallen back to brothers like King, who were great in all their respect. But that the strength that it takes to defy ego, and many of us don't have that. And now today we're looking at a watered down version, not to disrespect anyone here or out there, but it seems to me that we've lost our essence, and we need to reclaim that. We need, these stereotypes should not exist, and we have to ask ourselves, why do they exist? And how do we rid ourselves of them? Not just as women, but as a people. But the women, I'm asking you all, my sisters, to please step up and for us to all challenge those, because that is not who we are. And that is not who I want my daughter to see in herself. So how do we fight that with the same spirit of Ella Baker and a Harriet Tubman and an Assata Shakur? How do we fight against those stereotypes existing another day? I'm done.
If I could just add on to what our sister said, one of the things that we can do is study our history. My biggest critique of this generation, and this is not age-based, that means everybody who's living right now, whether you're 20, middle age, or elder, is that we're not focusing on organizing. We're event planners. And there's a difference between being an event planner and organizing a movement, right? There's a big difference. We can do this every week for 3 years, and it could be just events. Because it has no overarching ethos or philosophy behind it. It has no overarching objective it's trying to reach. It's not getting all segments of the black community involved. It's not building coalition and alliance. It's not challenging structural oppression. It's not challenging our own ignorance and self-defeating behavior. It's not a movement. That's a collection of events. And one of the reasons that we're in that state is because we're not connecting to the people who knew how to really organize. Organize means you come in, you get people who don't have a GED, a high school diploma at first, and you raise in them the spirit. You see their natural leadership ability, you hone it, you teach them certain skills, you pair them with people, and those people come out. Could be the sisters we were talking about that, what we were saying, they were street, too loud, curse, pop their gum. We were talking about that type of sister. And it could be that very sister that can come to a spot like this or wherever, and she gets what she needs, and she can go out, and she can go back to her hood and be an agent of liberation and education. But she can't be that if don't have a space for her to learn the skills and the thinking that you need to be an organizer. That's the beauty of Ella Baker. Ella Baker got a Fannie Lou Hamer, who was semi-literate, who was a sharecropper, had no real education, and by the time SNCC was finished with Fannie Lou Hamer, she was going around speaking all over the country, came up here to Harlem, spoke on the stage with Brother Malcolm, was actually running for office with the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. So she takes her sister and everybody else, oh, this shit got really dirty, she don't know nothing. See how we think? And she's able to come to this space and get renewed and regenerated, and that's organizing. I could die tomorrow night, be locked up, sell out, compromise. If this is all about me, that's gone. But if we build things that go past an individual, that deal with ideas which are eternal, and skills which are transferable, that once he got it, he can go out and teach 100 other people. She got it, she can teach 200. And that's how we used to do. So those of us that critique the church need to be mindful. Those were real organizers. So until you outproduce what they did, we might want to be careful about disrespecting people. We're not doing anything near what they were doing. The only real organization I see that's mounting a movement is Black Lives Matter. Straight music. In terms of consistently doing action all over the country, consistently in the media, consistently raising the issue. Whatever you think about them, that we got to get off of that. It's not about personality, because we all going to benefit from the work, right or wrong. Some of your king was a sellout. King, oh, but wait. But your king can go to different schools based on ability, right? And you can go to certain public spaces without being told you got to go there, right? So we all benefit. So now it's saying, how do we get the skills to do the work? And that's what this is about.
All right, that was the Harlem Liberation School. Hope y'all enjoyed that discussion. You're watching Info Den, information necessary for overstanding. April 7th, we got Unmasked. Your favorite superheroes: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, X-Men, Submariner, Spider-Man, Thor. All your superheroes you grew up watching on TV, reading their comic books, wondering where they get these stories from. But you know what? On April 7th, we're going to show and prove exactly where they get these stories from. Unmasked. That's right. Modern superheroes, African origins. Presentation by yours truly. And it's going to be hosted by the Watchman, Bishop Boy Jeremiah. So you don't want to miss that. And also a live performance by Pastor Peace. Pastor Peace, that's right. He's going to be laying it down. So you don't want to miss it. April 7th, Info Den.